Thank you so much, Adira, for that really thought-provoking speech. We now call upon the first speaker of opposition, Rachael Lennon. Rachael is the author of Wedded Wife, A Feminist History of Marriage. Having led the National Trust's multi-award-winning Prejudice and Pride and Women in Power programs, she is now co-director of the Centre for Heritage at Newcastle University. She writes for a range of publications and recently featured on BBC's Women's Hour and Philippa Gregory's Normal Women podcast. Rachael, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be here in this incredible space. This is actually my first time participating in this kind of formal debate, so thank you so much for having me. And happy Galentine's Day, everyone. Yeah. So I know that these debates can sometimes get a bit spiky, and I think that's not really something that I'm going to be bringing today. I think this is a good question and worth exploring and giving some time to. It's important to acknowledge that marriage has been oppressive for so many women and girls. Marriage is actively, deliberately weaponized against women and girls. And I know that there are women and girls in oppressive relationships around the world and here today around us now. I don't believe that marriage is inherently, speaking to a bit to your point, inherently, unavoidably, or inevitably oppressive. And what I want to offer is a bit of my own experience and talk about my own marriage to my wife. And I want to bring some questions and see if we can kind of open out our discussion a little. There's a click going on. Is that annoying for everyone, or is that okay? I think it's my earring or hair. Yeah. Shall I take? I'm going to remove my earring. Sacrifice my earring for your sound. There we go. Yes, I want to ask, can marriage be equitable? And I think that question really is key to this debate. Can marriage be equitable? And is it marriage that's causing oppression in our relationships? If we take out the oppression, if we take out marriage, do we remove the oppression? Maybe we need to remove husbands a bit to kind of find that. But we'll start with the question, what is marriage? Because I think it is really important for us to define. So I was raised with quite a narrow definition of marriage, a very Catholic one. Marriage is a holy sacrament between a man and a woman. That's what it is. That's how I was raised. But that's not the same definition that you're all bringing to this debate today, and it's not how we would define marriage now. And I want to show you that marriage has never really been inherently any one thing. And in all of the messy grey area, all of the different interpretations and lived experiences, all of the conflict and debate about what marriage is and what marriage can be, I think there's hope for marriage for us today. So in my other sort of usual workshop-y, less formal formats, I'd have you all define marriage for me, but I'm going to take the power of the box and do it for you. So is marriage a commitment, a relationship between two people? I hear you say at the back. And often, yes, often. But then so many societies and religions have recognized marriage between husbands and multiple wives. Some of history's wives have had multiple husbands. Is marriage defined by being a romantic thing? Like, sadly, we kind of know not. Is it sexual, religious? Not always. Is it always something to do with children or maybe cohabiting? Not always for everyone. Is it defined by being something that's forever? Not always for everyone. There are people so many people in parts of the world who will tell you that marriage can only be between a man and a woman. And that's what it is. And nothing else can be marriage. But we know that same-sex marriages have been practiced for centuries and on every populated continent in our planet. So I think marriage is whatever a society defines and chooses for it to be. And historians that look out beyond a relatively recent past, and particularly a kind of European-centric past, will tell you two things about marriage. One, there's no one definition of marriage that would hold true to the reality of all people's lives and lived experiences. And that almost every known society to recorded history has some kind of structure that is recognized as marriage. And I just want to start by inviting you to hold this scale of marriage in your minds and sort of this breadth of marriage and this bigger possibility for marriage throughout this debate. And I'm very aware that sort of very patriarchal ideology has fought hard to create a real monopoly on some of the ideas of marriage that we inherited. But actually, marriage is a construction. It's always been a construction. There's no consensus within that construction. We can, and we should construct it differently. Marriage has never been one anything. And it was really in that kind of spirit of let's redefine, let's look again, that I married my wife not so long after same-sex marriage became legal in the UK. And so I wanted to ask next, can marriage be equitable? Can it? Sort of, if marriage is inherently oppressive, does the oppression always win out? Can marriage be a positive thing? And as I was writing this, I was like, I hope my marriage is equitable. I kind of think it is. I asked my wife before I came, double checking. And it's my marriage that puts me so firmly on this side of the debate. I did what most women still do, and I took the leap and joined team marriage. And as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, that's not actually really what I did. What I actually did was make a commitment to an individual, a commitment that's very specific to her and to our relationship. And I don't think there's anything inherently oppressive about the marriage that we live. We willingly chose to commit to each other. We could still walk away, but we wanted to state our hope that this would be a lifelong relationship and to use that commitment to make other commitments, to sort of empower us to say, we can pool financially to buy a house, we'll have children and we'll co-parent together. There are so few choices that we make that we expect to last our entire lifetimes. And I know it sounds soppy, but it's anchoring. It's anchoring to have that foundation. And and if it's a fast-paced, fast-changing world, and I derive a sort of stability from that. Now, when I wrote the first draft of the epilogue to my book, Wedded Wife, my publisher said, right, I think you might want to be careful here. So she said, are you saying the only way of having an equitable or a feminist marriage is to marry another woman? Which I kind of get it. Yeah, you're like, yeah. That's it. Yes, that's it. Cracked it. And I thought about it and I was like, maybe I strongly recommend it to those. Yeah. But I decided, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. And partly because I looked around at the best men in my life and thought, I don't think oppression is inevitable for them, for those couples. They're living in partnerships, and I particularly thought about a male friend who's so genuinely empowering and nurturing of my friend's career, and another male friend who's the primary carer of their children, really enabling the parenthood that my friend wants. And it doesn't escape me, it didn't then, doesn't now, that in both of these situations, the man has really stepped outside of what we would consider normal husband territory. What a trad wife would tell you is wifely territory, wifely behaviour. And I think that patriarchal stereotype of husband that we've inherited, that can feel so loaded, can be oppressive. And maybe it's that we need to get rid of. And, it's not inherent in marriage that should be that way. These marriages are partnerships. There's no head of the household in these relationships. They're partners. And I think more than just, go for it.
So we're defining marriage as sort of like abstract, kind of define. I feel like we're stepping away from it as being like a legal institution that can sort of give you access to a sort of elevated status that gives you access to certain things. And like there are things like visa marriages.
Yeah, for sure.
People choose to marry certain people because like they have more land property, and so there are reasons why you would choose to commit legally to another person. And even though, I appreciate the argument that there are sort of individual dynamics, that can be cultivated through commitment alone, do you not think that that's a bit of a narrow definition? Should we not also look at the sort of legal aspect of it and people choose to elevate their status through marriage?
Yeah, I think your instinct about, let's be specific is right. And that is, I suppose, what I'm trying to say, in that this debate can only take part. Marriage is specific, it's geographically specific, it's set by cultural, sometimes religious, social norms in one place. And I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that that is different in so many different places, and that diversity of experience, I think, really shows the way in which marriage is not inherently oppressive. There are multiple ways of living this experience, there are multiple motivations. Seen my minute warning. So I was sort of talking about the idea of marriage being having radical potential within it, and I think that it's clear that same-sex marriage is a product of radical reform. I enjoy introducing my wife as my wife. I do, and particularly for me, and thinking about that sort of legal, social sort of framework, introducing my wife as my wife changes slightly legally, but also in people's expectations. It reinforces the idea of my family as a family, and particularly of my wife as equal co-parent to our children that I carried. And I think that is really important and radical and positive and enabling and not at all oppressive. So is marriage the problem? I think if we were to take away marriage, would we take away the oppression? Would we? I don't think we would. Marriage has never been inherently any one thing for anyone. We can redefine it. We can look at other ways. And whilst there is so much work to do, so much reform has happened in the last century. We have seen marriage be redefined. We have seen bits of oppression or, darker elements be let go of, even within my very short, young lifetime. In the year 2000, Gloria Steinem got married. She chose to join marriage. And when she did that, she was 66, and she said, I didn't change. Marriage changed. And it's that kind of possibility of change that I want to leave you with today. Thank you.